start the recording.
Yep. Thank you for joining today's webinar on Achieving ROI with Master Data Management. Your presenters today will be William McKnight, President of William McKnight Consulting Group, and Ross Hart, Vice President with Riversand Technologies. To maintain the audio integrity, we have muted the phone lines, but feel free to submit your questions via chat, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Now I am proud to pass the presentation on to William.
Okay. Well, thank you, Susan, and welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this topic, which addresses a question that I get on a regular basis in my consulting. Comes up a lot in terms of, companies trying to justify an MDM endeavor. And MDM is one of those things that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And so I thought I would bring up all the different definitions that I hear and all the different value points that there are within MDM within a compact presentation here. And also talk about this whole notion of ROI, because we kick it around a lot, but sometimes we're not quite sure what it is that we mean by that. And so I'm going to try to put some meat on that and talk about where the quote-unquote ROI comes from with master data management, because at some level, it must pass that muster. These are not skunkworks projects that we can do and kind of get away with for the long haul, get it into production, really amping it up across the enterprise without some dedication and commitment, very tangible commitment sometimes, to these projects. And so that's what I want to talk about, because I believe, after having gone through this exercise with so many clients about, how do we wedge MDM in here and make it make sense for the business, I believe that it has value, and it should have a place in most enterprise and mid-size environments. It's really a matter of doing some of this work, which I'm going to take you through now, of finding a way that really makes sense in your environment. So I'm really happy to be here with Riversand today talking about this important subject. A little bit of my background is here. I guess the point to leave you with is that this comes from practice, this comes from experience. This is not theoretical. This is what some of these companies here are doing to try to justify MDM efforts. Some of my clients are listed here for MDM and all things information management. So let's talk about MDM and what it is. Before we talk about how we get the return on investment on it, let's talk about what it is. And you'll hear all different perspectives on this. And so what I'm trying to do here is not invent new terms, not invent new definitions for MDM, not trying to get cute with any definitions or anything like that. What I'm trying to do is empower you so that when you go out there in the real world after our webinar is done and you read things, you hear things, you interact with your vendors, you talk to Riversand, etc., you have a broad perspective that all of the definitions out there that you hear will be able to fit into. And so you'll know the perspective that someone is coming from. You'll know that, perhaps you'll know that there's a lot more to it. And it's one of those things where there's so many different value propositions that if any one of them is, exceeds the ROI that we're going to talk about, then you should do it. But just because some of them may or may not be applicable to your situation doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right? So let's try to break it down here. Now, this is a definition I've been dragging around for, 5, 6 years. I wrote it originally in Information Management Magazine, and it stood the test of time. And I figured out then that it was many things to many people, and I still believe that, and still really very much is. So to some people, it's about the integration, starting in the upper left-hand corner. It's about the integration, the ETL, if you will, if you want to call it that, the migration of data on a real-time basis from a hub or from its master place, wherever that may be in the organization, out to all the various what we call subscribers or systems that are interested in that data. It's about that to a lot of companies. It's about the architecture. There's various ways to architect MDM. There's virtual ways, there's physical ways, there's hybrid ways, there's real-time. Sometimes it drifts into batch territory. It really depends on a lot of different things. The idea is that business gain, though. How do we get the business gain, the most bang for the buck in terms of the ROI? There's modeling. What you get out of MDM is an enterprise model. Now, I'm talking about enterprise MDM here, and I hope that's what you all eventually, at least, aspire to. What I find right now is that most companies are trying to either break into MDM or kind of break that territory from single subject MDM to multiple subject MDM. Or maybe you've mastered up a subject like customer and you're trying to share it now to multiple applications. Well, sometimes you can hit a little bit of a wall when you try to make those steps in your MDM journey, but that's okay. These are not knockout factors. These are factors that you know are there, you want to break through, but with the foresight of knowing where your MDM is going, namely enterprise MDM, you can do things today to facilitate that process and really create an organization that treats information like a business asset. And I think to do that, you really have to have MDM underlying the whole thing. There's also the data quality. There's also third-party data, syndicated data that you might be bringing in. I think MDM is a great place to bring in syndicated data. It is the most leverageable data store that you will find in most enterprises once it's done right. So therefore, I think that a lot of syndicated data is really about master profiles, especially customer profiles. It really finds a home in MDM in a lot of places. Now, data quality is about, achieving a level with your data such that you don't have intolerable defects. We won't go into that in any great detail today, but MDM does provide good data quality. You might look at all this, all these bubbles and all these things I'm talking about and say, well, we're doing that. We're doing that, maybe not that. That's okay. Every organization, what I like to say anyways, every organization is doing MDM. As a matter of fact, most of them are doing it in multiple places. I mean, what applications don't need master data? They all do. So it's a matter of if you're going to do a little bit of it either centrally or house a little bit of the application effort. I say a little bit. It can be a lot, of course. House that data aspect of the application somewhere separately, as in with your MDM team, and share it out from there. Or are you going to put that workload all completely upon the application, which bloats the budget, which bloats your timelines, which increases your possibility for risk, etc. This is really, in my view, a lot about data as a service. Now, there's the ROI of MDM, and that's what we're here to talk about. So there is that aspect to MDM as well. There's how you organize for MDM. MDM is not, and if I don't say this 10 times, do know that I mean to, which is that MDM is not a technical exercise. It's very much a business exercise. It's all about facilitating the business in terms of how they're going to use the data. It's not something that you want the business saying, you guys over there in IT go off and do this and let us know when it's done. It is definitely not that. And you do want to organize for this for maximum effectiveness. You want to create that stewardship program, create that governance program, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but that's definitely a big part of MDM. And then there's the workflow, which a lot of my clients think that that is really what MDM is all about, and really that's the main value proposition. And if I look across this whole definition here, I have to agree that that is an area where the software historically has been lacking, and that MDM software like Riversand brings a lot of value to that process. What am I talking about there? I'm talking about, the process by which you create the master records. Some of you have good master record processes already, and you're more concerned with the integration. Well, some of my clients have had to replace existing broken processes that create master data, and workflow either has a large part or at least a small part in just about every subject area, creating those master records and keeping them up to date. So that's a very important part of MDM. So this used to be I say used to be, and I'm going to build on this. Maybe you're looking at this and saying, I would like that, what you're showing me right now. I wish I had just a couple warehouses, a couple stores I could call a warehouse. I wish I had some, serious data marts here. But I think most of us have some warehouses, some marts. Some are fed from, some of the marts are fed from the warehouses. Some of them are cube structures, multidimensional databases. Some of them are not. But this sort of simple picture doesn't rule the day anymore. Environments are getting much more complex. My client environments are very divergent from this. This is why I say this is the former enterprise information holy grail. And I think where we're going with our information architecture. It really can't be laminated. It can't be put into a slide and say, wave it around and say, everybody, you need to be doing this, because everybody's going to diverge from this point. Some of us are going to consolidate those warehouses and those cubes. I think that's great. But most of the work effort that we're doing in information budgets has to do with adding more and more and more. And as you add more and more and more, the environment becomes more complex, and MDM makes abundantly more sense. If you just think about the leverage out to the final picture I'm going to show you here if you have MDM in place. So let's add. Okay, so I consolidated some of the marts, some of the cubes, some of the warehouses, made it a little bit cleaner. Now let's mess it all up with what's actually going on out there. Data stream processing is going on. I'm not going to take extreme amounts of time to explain each one of these, but that's sort of real-time processing before the data even hits a database. You're processing that data. You're checking for fraud. You're checking for things that are outside the norm that you might need to act on. You're testing what's the next best offer to put out there, etc. Okay, now here's MDM. I'm going to bring that in right now and build on what I've shown you here. Now, what I'm showing you here is the MDM, what we call the hub, which is where the data is housed. It's not big data. It's actually rather small data, but it's important data. So it's more quality over quantity as opposed to where some of these other data stores are coming from. And then I also try to show you here as best as I can a little workflow process that actually builds up a master record. And that comes into here, and this gets spread out to various other operational data sources and analytic sources. So I'll build on that as we go along here. There's my syndicated data. I'm bringing that into the MDM hub. All right. What else are we doing? We're bringing in columnar databases. Well, a lot of you are doing this. Why are you doing it? Because it has special performance abilities around special workloads. And those workloads happen to be sort of the analytical query, which I won't get into today. I do talk about it in depth in other presentations. I talk about all of this in other presentations. But they're almost all necessary in a lot of enterprise environments, or in most enterprise environments, I should say, because gone are the days when we can just shove everything into a relational row-based, OLTP-based data warehouse, and away you go. We need that special performance. Performance matters. We're learning more and more what to do with extra performance. And so those systems that we put that data into comprise sort of the biggest element of where the performance is coming from. And that's why we're getting all specialized. We're bringing in Hadoop. I'm sure most of you have heard of Hadoop for big analytical data, and it actually, in this picture, looks bigger than the data warehouse, doesn't it? Well, it may be from a data perspective eventually for a lot of companies. Doesn't mean it's going to be bigger in importance. Doesn't mean the data warehouse is going away. It means that you may have that alongside the data warehouse. It's not replacing the warehouse. Can't do those functions, at least not on the horizon, but it is there in a lot of environments already. Data warehouse appliances, maybe they're back here fed from the warehouse, maybe they're up here fed from operational systems. A lot of them are used for single applications, analytical applications, but they're there. You know, they're creeping into our enterprise environments. Then there are NoSQL databases as well. Hadoop is a NoSQL database, but then there are a host of other NoSQL databases that follow either a graph model, a document model, a key value model, or a column store model, and they actually serve up operational big data. Big data being that data that is just generated with such high volume that it really doesn't make sense to put it into a relational database from a cost perspective, from a scaling perspective, from a failover perspective, and really from a how we use it perspective. And I won't get into all that. My point is really how complex environments are getting, and oh, what about this? And we're adding some of this, not all of it, but some of it somewhere, maybe in multiple pockets, are going to the cloud. Maybe it's a public cloud, maybe it's a private cloud, but we're all embracing the cloud at some level. And that is really also creating complexity in the environment. We're going to be busy. We're going to be really busy as information professionals. And I think master data, it takes a lot of the workload off of all these other projects by creating data as a service, by creating data as an API, if you will, and then we're going to spread that data out to operational and analytical data stores everywhere in real time, sometimes not, but mostly in real time. I think that's a strong value proposition of MDM. The other thing I want to say is that we don't have to have physically disparate or physically duplicated master data hubs out here in all for all of these data stores to use by themselves. Some of them can use the master data hub directly, and that's an architectural question, which I won't get into trying to answer today, but do know that that is true as well. So not only are we spreading the data out, but we're creating high-quality data for all to use. And here we're going all the way out to the marts, and this is just, MDM is just one of many things, many domains that's being pulled back into the operational environment that used to be the sole domain of the data warehouse. And now we've learned we really can't do some of these things, or shouldn't try to do all these things in the data warehouse, master data management being one of them. But just to give you some context, we're doing a lot of BI in the operational world. A modern ERP system has a lot of good reporting built in already. Maybe there's some light integration that is possible within the operational environment. So you know how we need some integrated data sometimes for those operational reports. Well, some of that's possible without actually pushing that data off to an analytical environment. We have analytical applications that are both analytical, like post-operational, and operational analytic applications. And then there's that stream processing that I talked about. So the direction, the very clear direction of processing is moving it back more to real time. And MDM really supports that. I think we used to do MDM a lot more in the data warehouse. We just didn't call it that. And it just really, you know, I've been doing data warehousing for a long time. It just really never quite was the right place for it ultimately, right, for the 2000s and beyond here. So more about MDM here. Now, here are some subject areas of MDM, and subject area is a very important concept for MDM. I believe that an organization should embrace subject area culture, regardless of whether you're going with MDM or not, but especially if you're taking on an MDM initiative. Now, I almost hesitated to put this up here because every client is different, and every client will bring new, interesting subject areas to the list. As I've built out a bunch of plans over the course of years for many clients in many industries, and they continually surprise me with, you know, once they get the swing of it, you know, they're going to bring in some proprietary-ish kind of subject areas into their MDM hub over the course of time. And that's just really exciting to see that, you know, once they get the concept that, you know, they're really amping it up. And so, my advice is to not build your MDM such that you architect yourself into a black hole and you really can only do one subject area. And so, you know, tools like River Sands really help you to do many subject areas over the course of time, as you will need to do. But typically, customers and products are the heavy hitters out there, the first ports of call for this, if you will. I'd say customers maybe by a hair over product, but you know what? It really depends. It really depends on a customer's priorities or client's priorities at that point in time. And by the way I do MDM, and I'm going to share this with you for consideration, I say that a subject area should be fully mastered within 6 months, fully. And you might say, well, how can we possibly, we're a global multinational company, how can we possibly master our customers in 6 months? Well, then you have to break that subject area up. You probably have more than one data steward, and that could be a problem as well for something as big as customers in that environment. So let's break it out, sharpen the pencil. And furthermore, and I don't have time to expand on this, but we want to use agile techniques, I think, to get this done. Now, I know some of those first sprints we're not going to have major deliverables that users love, right, because there is some groundwork to be done. That's where stuff we do in information management, namely MDM, kind of diverges from the strict Scrum mindset. But nonetheless, it is a mindset, the agile mindset, that we want to take into these projects, I think. Okay, so here are some challenges to implementing MDM. I'm not going to read them all. you're probably looking at going, yeah, that's us, that's us. Hopefully the whole list isn't you, you know, but maybe it is. But what I have to say about these challenges is I acknowledge them, I understand them, I've gotten past them, and they are not knockout factors for not doing MDM or for doing MDM. You have to, what these are input to how long it's going to take and where you need to spend a little bit more effort than otherwise or than normal, if you even know what normal is. But these are questions I get into in my consulting, trying to figure out, okay, you know, how long is this going to take? You know, where do we need to spend some effort? Where do we need to kind of shore things up before we really throw the gauntlet down and say, okay, now we're really doing MDM? You know, there is some of that in the background, and a lot of this has to do with working together cross-departmentally. That's a problem most everywhere I go. That's a problem in companies that are 100 years old, that really haven't talked to one another from department to department in the way that's needed for MDM. It's also can be a problem with companies that are a couple of years old, that already have formed a culture that's isolated, if you will. And MDM comes along, and you know, we are some of the first steps at bringing the company back together maybe a little bit. And that's okay. I welcome that challenge. It needs to be done, and it just really needs to be acknowledged. So these are some of the challenges, but now the more exciting value points for MDM. I've already mentioned some of these. I think I've mentioned probably all of them except hierarchy management. Okay, some of us have really complex hierarchies. Have found it very difficult to manage hierarchies. Like I have a customer that tries to manage their district, their sales districts, which is constantly changing. SVPs are moving around, getting more or less territory. Salespeople are coming and going, et cetera, et cetera. They've just found a hard time historically managing that. They actually view MDM, the biggest value point, as being just able to manage that hierarchy. Heck, they don't even share the data. They just query the data. But that pays for the MDM effort right there because of all the hodgepodge types of things, Excel, faxing, et cetera, that was going on without the project. So the other thing I didn't mention before is the data merge and match. And that's part of data quality, and that's the human element to data quality, looking at data that falls outside the bounds of rule-based data quality improvement and really needs some human expert, if you will, eyeballs upon that data to determine how to put it all together. So a lot of times, you know, we'll look at our customer base and is this John Smith the same as that Jonathan Smith or John Smith Jr.? You know, we'll look for, okay, you know, same address, same this, same that, you know, and eventually we create rules for this. But at the beginning, we move into it, we wade into stuff like this. We want to be conservative. We don't want to overmatch. That's one of the worst things. We, you know, collapse two real customers into one. We don't want to do that. So we wade into it. Eventually, though, the rules pick up, and we gain confidence in our rules. So those are some of the value points for MDM. Now let's justify the bigger effort here. So investments in MDM. MDM returns are in the improved efficacy of projects targeting business objectives. I don't have a client that turns around and sells their MDM data as their primary means of paying for the project. And by selling, I don't mean internally, I mean on the external market. Yes, some of them sell their data and have become syndicated players themselves, but that's not the point. The point is that the main value proposition of MDM is the fact that your Salesforce automation project, your CRM project, your ERP project, even your data warehouse project and all your analytic projects, they're going to have more value because they're going to have better data. They're going to have more quality data, and they're going to have it quicker. Put those two together, and that improves most projects. And that's why I say MDM should be an integral part of most projects. My goal for you as an MDM leader in your organization, or for that MDM leader in the organization, is to be connected throughout the enterprise so that when a new project is being thought of, they think to come to you and say, not only how can I get that master data so I don't have to build it, but also how can I create or how can I contribute my master data that I'm going to be creating to MDM. Now that second question is, that's a little bit more of a pull question, right, than a push question, but those are the two main things that are on the table. The other thing being, does a subject area require heavy or light or no data governance, as we say, or that workflow part. So when I said workflow before, some of us use the parlance of data governance to talk about that. It's really the implementation. The workflow is really the implementation of data governance policies and so on. But you will see data governance referred to as that workflow. And so designing that workflow can be a big part of the work, but a very rewarding part of the work within MDM. You see, the benefits from MDM are indirect. They're either second order or they're third order, and this is where a lot of us, throw our hands down and say, well, can't be measured. Can't be measured because it's not right here in front of my face. It has to do with how much better that application out there is going to be at its cash flow, whatever it's doing for the business. And what it should be doing is somehow, some way, raising the revenues, the profitable revenues of the company, or decreasing the expenses of the company, or both. And sometimes both in multiple ways, right? But in order to look at things from an ROI perspective, from the perspective of somebody who's probably ultimately going to have to say yes to this project, you have to break things down into cash flow. And so let's move on a little bit with that concept. Here is MDM in practice, and these are just, various industries. Some have embraced MDM more quickly than others, but they've all embraced MDM. There's no industry the MDM cannot touch, right, and cannot be effective in. Healthcare is, that's staring us all in the face. The computerized patient record, for example. Now, what I list here are a couple subject areas. That's not to say that you can fully master everything you want to do with computerized patient record with just these two subject areas. But these two subject areas, if you have them mastered, will take you a long way at doing the things from a data perspective that you need to do for computerized patient record. And that's why I can link some of these key objectives of these key industries over to their subject areas. So retail, we've got customer, product, price, calendar, and promotion. Insurance, customer and product. Public sector, person and service. Moving on, banking and healthcare among the leaders, by the way. We got banking coming up here. We got pharmaceutical. Some of the things that pharmaceuticals are doing now have a lot to do with the drug subject area and the customer subject area. They, for example, want to be sure that they're prescribing drugs that do not have conflict with one another and that they are prescribing them to the exact right customer. And these are areas that MDM is supporting out there. Manufacturing and banking, there you can see some of the objectives and some of the subject areas. Okay, so what do we get? We say we're done with an MDM project. We've run a number of sprints. Maybe it's taken a few months. I don't know. But here are some of the key outcomes. Here's what I want to see to know that we've done something. Reduced IT TCO for data management in general. Why? Fewer systems. Not everybody is rolling their own little MDM out there and probably doing it in a bad way. And why do I say that? I've seen it so much. MDM is about the data primarily, and data professionals should be managing that. And if it's, sometimes application developers, we need them, they need to do their job, but a lot of times their domain is not data. We want to put MDM in the hands of data professionals so that they do data quality, so that they do correct forms of data integration. Now, the workflow stuff that's part of MDM, that's been something, a little bit of a hurdle for some MDM teams because that, as I come to an organization and look around, nobody's the workflow expert, right? Because a lot of times workflows aren't built, and so that's something new. But moving on, streamlining processes, lessen the organizational focus on the data warehouse. What about that? The data warehouse used to be the center of the enterprise. Now it's becoming a little less interesting as other things like MDM are taking hold, right? Increasing the understanding of corporate data. You're in there with your corporate data, finally maybe, looking at it with a microscope, looking at it and looking at data quality, talking to the stewards about what they expect out of that data, really honing it down to its essence where it can actually be a strong data asset. strong asset for the company. So you're getting to know your data intimately through this process. Improved ability to deal with compliance because it's there in one place. You can buy into it. Everybody can buy into the data that ends up in MDM, or they should. If they haven't, if they can't, then there's something that has gone wrong along the way. But now let's talk about return on investment. Let's talk about it generally speaking. This is true for all projects, right? There are 4 forms, 4 variations on the theme of ROI. There's present value. What is this thing worth to me today? There's break-even analysis. When does my initial investment get paid for by the returns of the project, and when does it stay that way? So I'm always in the black, if you will. Internal rate of return is a turn on good old return on investment. So return on investment, think about, you put $1 in the bank. If they're paying 1% interest to be modern, that's probably very aggressive. But if they're paying a 1% interest a year from now, it'll be like $1 and a penny that you would get back. So you got a return on investment on that of 1%. Congratulations. But these are the 8 steps to doing ROI. I'm not going to go through them. Why? Because, like I said before, I don't think that's where you get the quote-unquote ROI from MDM. It actually comes in total cost of ownership. You're reducing the total cost of ownership for data throughout the enterprise. That's the #1 way that I've justified MDM, total cost of ownership, not return on investment, because you're not turning around and selling that data. Now, didn't I say, though, that all these applications are going to be able to do their ROI much better as a result of MDM? I did, and I believe that, and that's part of the equation. But the primary way to justify it is through the total cost of ownership, and this is really a stress point for my message today, is to think about it that way. And think about the ROI that's behind all these applications. I mean, I've seen MDM just make or break, and actually make a project be successful and deliver return on investment, whereas if that project had to struggle with the people they had at trying to come up with, create the data store for the project and do it in their timelines, there's no way it would have gotten done, and in their budget, frankly. So, we carved out that budget, set it over here for MDM, had great high-level communications and detailed communications throughout the process. So we supported that app, but the way that we supported that app, we didn't preclude ourselves from going forward and supporting other apps. So I don't think, and this is my observation from a lot of MDM implementations, I don't think it costs more or takes much more time to do it right. A lot of people, that's where they say, well, we can't do MDM because I know that's doing it right, but gosh, it costs so much and it's going to take so long to do it. It really shouldn't. It really should not. So the MDM killer app, do not build MDM looking for the killer app. Know where the initial ROI is going to come from. Know where you're going to get to the point where you've broke even on the investment, at least. Now, we can't tell the future, and I'm continually surprised going back to clients I was at 2-3 years ago at where they've taken their programs, because sometimes it's very divergent from the plan we laid out for the 3rd year, okay? So the first couple of years, the plans are pretty much what they need to be. And then they're able to spin up multiple Scrum teams and get much more done and support many more applications with MDM. So the TCO/program justifications, it's really you want to justify it as a program, not as a project, even though it's a series of projects. Operational systems impact. MDM methodology and competence. I've stressed this throughout the presentation. It's housed within the data experts. It's going to get done right. It's going to get done faster. MDM tools competence. We don't have a bunch of different MDM tools all over because this or that department decided upon this one or that one. Enterprise subject areas. True subject areas that scale beyond this initial application, scale to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th app, whatever those apps may be. Because a given subject area works just as well, just about as well, I should say, for an ERP app as it does a Salesforce app, as it does for the web app, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They all want, all those apps want is the master data that has been blessed by the data steward and serve it up to me in real time with data quality. That's MDM. So a few final tips here before I turn it over to Ross. Organizing and planning for MDM success. MDM is a discrete deliverable. Too many projects, and there's a list of some of them, require master data and will undoubtedly develop it to the degree necessary for their own proprietary delivery needs. They will. And upwards, we know this, upwards of half of those projects, the effort, the budget, goes into the data. What if that were put over here with MDM and done right for that application? We're not going to mess with that application. We're going to do right by it, but we're also going to do right by the organization. As a matter of fact, the bulk of many such projects is mastering master data. I just mentioned that. Imagine the impact on timelines if this important aspect of these programs can become an organizational service. And that's what we want to get to. Data is a service to the organization. So here are some of the program components. I won't go into them in detail now, but you got, at a detail level, you got the data stewardship program by subject area that's contributing the data quality rules, et cetera. All the way through your program governance implementation team, a data quality program, and a data governance program, which is that organizing framework for establishing strategy, objectives, and policies for corporate data. Now, I'm not here to say you have to form all these committees, right? We can do multiple of these within a given set of people. That's what I'm about, is streamlining things. But these are functions that should be done within MDM. MDM is not a technical function. So determine organizational readiness and remediation. This is one of those hills that unfortunately we need to die on before we step into the MDM world. If there are expectations that IT is going to handle it, and they're just going to do whatever they want to do and foist it upon the business, do not step into that project. Steer clear of that kind of project. That project needs a little bit more groundwork, a little bit more communication about the benefits of MDM, much as what I'm trying to share with you here today. MDM requires a commitment to the utilization of the MDM process for master data. So the way that we are building the MDM data through the workflow, that's the way it needs to be done henceforth, not, oh, but, we're under a strict deadline, so let's go back to the old way. And try to, kind of wedge that together with how we did MDM. No, let's go with the new way and make sure that it's scalable enough to manage all our processes. This is what I call don't mess up. These are just lessons learned from experience. Don't ignore agile development. Don't wait till the last minute to look at hardware needs. There will be some. Don't wait till it's time to start user acceptance testing to define the process and the participants in that user acceptance testing. And when I've built workflows, that is when there's a lot of UAT, and that needs to be planned. And otherwise, you get to the end of the development, and you're sitting on your hands, and people are like, well, why isn't this moving forward? Well, we need to line up the UAT. No, have that foresight and start lining it up. Same thing with security, test plans, just talked about that a little bit. Don't keep business governance out of the program. Get them in the program. Be prepared for organizational change. This is as important as anything, really, technically. I have a whole presentation on organizational change around these projects. It's that important. Stakeholder management is important. Training is important for the new participants, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the softer stuff can be some of the harder stuff if you let it. Don't staff the team solely with technicians, and don't assume that once MDM is in place that you walk away, it's done. It needs some attention, all right? And as a matter of fact, most of my clients continually give it some good amounts of attention because they're adding new subject areas. They're adding new publishers of data. They're adding new subscribers to the data. They're fine-tuning their workflow. They're trying to eliminate some of the manual processes around match merge, et cetera. So I don't know anybody that's done with MDM once they start, and I think that's good news because it's continually delivering value. And don't mess up not including consultants that have led other organizations to MDM success. Those of us that know the traps and trepidations out there and so on will keep you out of that. And finally, I have a little maturity slide here in the upper right. I'll focus on you got all your master data in the transactional environment. You're feeding all the systems that need the data. You have a full data quality program, not a partial one, and you have automated distribution, not a manual distribution process, automated real-time. Now, that being said, nobody is quite there. Most of us are either down here, starting out, like I said before, moving on to second subject area, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't going away. This is going to be around for a while. It's going to be an important part of our information management environments for years to come. Many of us will have complete careers inside of MDM, I do believe. So where do you go from here? Subject area evaluation. What are your subject areas? Maybe a little subject area conceptual model. Determination of publish and subscribe. Where is this data coming from? Who needs it? Data governance establishment. This is the business input. Data quality program establishment, because whatever we distribute, we want it to be of quality. We don't want that first impression of our data from MDM to be, oh, I can't use this. This is of poor quality. This is incomplete, not what I expected, et cetera, et cetera. Let's kind of hedge that off. And finally, technology selection. Look at technology out there and then get into iterative agile development and get on your way. With that, I'm going to turn it over now to Ross. He's going to talk to you a little bit about Riversand, and then I'll be back with Ross for some Q&A in just a little bit.
Super. Thank you, William. Thank you, Susan. Go ahead and get my slide deck up. And what I want to do today is just give you a quick overview of who Riversand is, and also a little bit of an example of what some of our clients have gained as a before and after result of implementing our MDM solution. First, though, a little bit about Riversand. We've been in the PIM and MDM space for a little over 10 years now and have a lot of different, very noteworthy clients using our solution. We've been expanding our reach into several other countries across the globe. Our headquarters are in Houston, and then we also have offices in Zurich and in Bangalore. Our customers kind of go across a range of a lot of different worlds, the manufacturing space, the distribution, retail, and a lot of specialty areas. Some of our recent clients are Topco, which is a consortium of a lot of grocery and pharmaceutical retailers, Teva, the world's largest manufacturer of generic pharmaceuticals located in Israel, who I believe William also worked with us on that one. Lieber, one of the largest manufacturers of construction and heavy crane equipment located in Germany, and Pepperell and Fuchs. Master data management goes into a lot of different data domains. Sometimes people will come to Riversand and say, hey, I just have one certain area I need to solve, and then the implementation of master data management will move over into the other data domains. Sometimes it starts with product, sometimes it starts with customer, those two being the most largest in demand data management areas. Riversand has very high accolades on master data management from several different analysts and research groups. Gartner, of course, is probably the most prolific out there, Forrester also, but all of these organizations giving services and support and insight on the rankings of some of the top MDM solutions. But let me give you right now a quick look at some of our customers and what they've really experienced. One example is Nordstrom. In the retail space, this is just a marquee brand name. Everybody listens up, gets to the edge of their seat, and wants to hear a little bit about what's going on with a retailer brand name such as Nordstrom. And one of the biggest things they benefited from is our advanced workflow, the ability to automate notifications to various contributors, both internal and external, to contribute content on a person-by-person basis, and be able to have escalation if somebody didn't contribute or didn't answer questions or didn't confirm content or didn't approve a merge, and get somebody else automatically to do that so that it continued going on through the flow when somebody was out of town or on vacation. and be able to dynamically and intelligently move that work over to other people based on, the backlog somebody might have, moving it to somebody different, or being fair and bringing it round robin from one person to the next, or just notify everybody, and whoever's available first, just grab it and work on that particular data element. And the workflow within Riversand is extremely creative. It's extremely capable of applying to several different data governance notifications and issues and other types of concepts that will fill someone's need. But one, in a product-driven company like Nordstrom, is the ability to know what products might be about to be tardy in their desire to bring it to market. And our solution allows it to direct those people to the products that might need some additional help prior to them being late, so they can deliver it on a granular basis, knowing which department needs to work on it, when did they get it, and when did they release it, so that they will always have a product go to market on time. Another really good example is PC Connection, a business-to-business computer distributor. And PC Connection was able to see a ROI as the theme of this, described in two different ways. One was new product introduction, the ability to reduce the amount of time it got a new product to market by about 80%. Another way is workforce productivity, the ability to get people more productive so that they can handle more throughput or do more with less people. PC Connection saw initially a 33% increase in productivity, but what really happened was during the implementation, we probably doubled the number of product attributes, the data points about a product during the data modeling phase. So these numbers really are understated. But with PC Connection, one of the big things was, how do I create all of this written content quickly and efficiently rather than just introducing the product and then later getting to the detailed specification information? And what we did during that implementation was we said, okay, you've got this MDM content, these descriptions, very granularly laid out in the solution, and we wanted to get it into this. What we'll do is we'll help you create business rules, or your people can create business rules, so that once the content is populated, the system will automatically write all of these sentence-type descriptions so that everything goes live on your various sales channels at the same time. VF is truly a good MDM concept. William, in this particular one, we actually took all of these brands and we're running through a 2-year roadmap to bring the North Face and Lucy and Wrangler and Vans and Eastpak and Timberland all on a MDM world that includes product for the finished goods, material, as VF Corporation is the world's largest apparel manufacturer, vendor for the vendor master record and vendors to be able to do some self-service over the portal and take a look at their KPIs, and then customer. As you'd mentioned before, multiple instances try to get those merged into one golden record. And it's rolling across 3 regions, North America, Europe, and Asia, with the user interface in 12 different locales. Now, from there, I want to turn it over to questions, because I think that's the most important part of this, is for people to be able to take what they've heard from you and I and bring it back across the wire to us with questions that are specific to their particular company, their challenges, and their ROI questions. So with that, Susan, if you want to take control and moderate, I see some people are already waiting in line.
Yes, thanks, William and Ross. Yeah, we have a few questions already and some more coming in via chat. So, William, I believe this first question is for you. Is there ever a time when MDM provides financial return to the business?
There are times when it provides direct financial return to the business in those cases where it's built to syndicate or sell the data out. I also have one client that's on a chargeback system internally. So if you want their data, you pay for it. And so kind of internally with those kinds of machinations, you can see how MDM is quote-unquote paying for itself. But generally, like I said in the presentation, it was about total cost of ownership for the entire enterprise portfolio of applications. Is that your experience, Ross?
Yeah, it is, and it's gonna depend a lot on the data domain that they're bringing live. Product is going to take a while. Customer is going to be a very, very quick ROI once you get through the initial merge and load back into the different systems.
Great, and the next question kind of feeds right into that. What is the most important value point for MDM when they're trying to justify it?
Well, I'll come in on that and say that it's really up to you. It's really up to where your challenges are today, and you want to solve those challenges with MDM. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of different value points. I think I mentioned a client thought hierarchy management was the biggest value point. Another client thought data merge and match was the biggest value point. Finally, they have that functionality, But I guess if I had to generalize, I would say that data governance capability would be number one, which means the workflow processes that actually build up the master records, let alone what happens to the master records after they are built up. And that would be the second one, I would say, which is data integration on a real-time basis out to all subscribers who want it. So I think those are the ones that seem to be more important than others in my experience.
Ross, do you have anything to add to that, or?
No, I think William pretty much nailed that one.
Yeah, I think so. The next question seems to be, where is the best place to start, especially if you have many domains? And that would I guess we'll start with William. I'm sure you both have something to input there.
Definitely, definitely. My last slide was the place to start, really, which it said to do a listing or a conceptual model of your enterprise subject areas, to rank them in terms of importance, understand how much data governance would be needed around each of those subject areas, determine, generally speaking, who the publishers and subscribers are. And again, I'm trying to promote an agile approach to MDM, which means we are not being perfect about this up front, but we're doing enough to get us reasonably to the next step. And so this is all, the broad first pass stuff that helps get you into the ballpark of something that then you can turn around and size up some ROI around and get into agile development for.
William, if I can add to that, I'm out in the field working with companies when they're just kicking the tires and they're just trying to wrap their hands around what MDM is, wrap their hands around what some of the ROI is, and how the rollout looks in terms of IT involvement, business users involvement, and all that. And I think the biggest mistake companies make is to not just go ahead and reach out to a professional like you and engage consulting and go ahead and understand that it's going to take you a year to a year and a half just to understand what the opportunity is versus a matter of a few weeks or a couple of month engagement to understand what it is if they were to bring you in. Not to mention the many mistakes they would make otherwise where you've been with your clients and seen the after results and made sure the guidance was, a stellar result. So I don't mean to pitch you there, but I'm just saying I see it, and I work with these companies for a year plus, and the ones that have consultants, they nail it. They know exactly what they're going to need that's unique to their environment.
Well, that does matter. Yep.
Great, thanks. And the next one seems to be, how long does it take to implement a subject area?
I know Ross has some specific views around this, but I'll give kind of the general lay of the land. As I mentioned in my talk, I think that a subject area should be mastered up in, a good 6 months or less. And this doesn't mean backing up the clown car and trying to pile as many bodies onto the project as we can to get it all done in 6 months. This has to do with the art of carving up a subject area into meaningful blocks of a work effort that actually fit kind of that time frame. And also I find that what kind of happens naturally is that I'm able to assign a business data steward to a project that should take about 6 months, as opposed to something that would take longer. Then we get into multiple data stewards, which gets into that level of of complexity, which can be managed, can be mitigated, but nonetheless, that's sort of what I don't want to get into. If I can help it, you know, there'll be a data stewardship council that'll handle kind of the bigger issues around stewardship, but, you know, I want to be working with the steward for a given subject area. And if that means that customer's too big, then customer's too big. Let's make it East Coast, West Coast, or international, domestic, or high value, not high value, prospect, customer, attrited customers. You know, let's break it up in some way, shape, or form. That being said, though, and Ross has some ideas I know about the alacrity you can achieve in certain subject areas versus others.
Yeah, I do. You know, when you get into the size of the organization and you have a really large organization, you can break it up regionally, or you can break it up by domain, or you can break it up into phases. But once it's all finished and rolled out, you know, the time commitment, you know, I think that, you know, for a larger company who is in, you know, 12 or 20 countries, who's in the billions of dollars in sales, it's gonna most likely take longer than 6 months. If it's product and it's in 12 or so languages, and you've got business users that are located in, you know, 4 or more countries, I'd say it's going to be more like a year. And if it's a smaller company that might be, you know, $200 million in sales and they're just North America only, customer could take 3.5 months, product could take 6 to 7 months. So I hope that helps just a little bit, just from what I've seen out there as well.
Great, thanks guys. The last question, it seems like it's slowed down a little bit, is how many subject areas require workflow? And William, this probably fits you immediately.
Well, what I found is that they almost all require a little bit of workflow, maybe around the merge match stuff, and maybe it's a complete revamping of where of how the product gets generated. So in my experience, product has more workflow than customer, because a lot of clients will have good customer systems that are already building good customer records, whereas product tends to be something that's been kind of kludged together over the course of time. And so we recently did a PIM, a product information management implementation, that replaced a non-working new product introduction system. And they were able to get product to market in days instead of months as a result, and with higher quality. And so product does tend to require much more work in that area, I've found.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's the last question. So thanks to William and Ross for your valuable information. And I'd like to thank all the people participating in our webinar today. If you have any further questions, feel free to send them to info@riversand.com, and we will also have replays of this webinar on the events page of our website, so feel free to view this again or refer this link to your colleagues. Also, any questions you send to the info@riversand.com, we will forward on to William if he needs to address them directly. And we'd like to thank you again for making the time in your day to participate. Have a wonderful day, and best of luck with your PIM and MDM projects.